Welcome. Back in the early 1990s, just after Ceausescu had been ousted from power in Romania, I was privileged to be invited to go and stay in Brașov. The Baptist pastor, who'd recently been imprisoned, had oversight of over 100 churches, and he was holding a summer camp at which 50 of his pastors were attending a week of teaching, to which I and others were invited to help with. I must say that on reflection, when back home, I realised that the Romanians had taught me far more than I'd able to impart to them. We stayed in one of the concrete high-rise blocks with a family, a grandmother, her daughter, son-in-law, 2 children and another on the way. And I know without any shadow of a doubt that they fed us with food that they went without. They didn't eat with us. During my time there, one of the most significant conversations I had was with a pastor who explained that during Ceausescu's reign, they'd felt like lions being shut in cages. And suddenly the doors had been opened, but they were afraid to venture out. Their fears were that they couldn't really believe that they were free. I reflected on this again this week and saw so many similarities with how many in our country are feeling at this time at the ending of lockdown. Yes, I can go out. Yes, I can meet with my family. I can even have a barbecue. Yes, children can go to school. But is it safe? This morning's paper suggested that over 55% of children who could have returned to school yesterday were kept at home by their parents, fearful that although the restrictions have been lifted, is it safe? And as I thought about this, my mind went to John's account of the disciples locked in their house for fear in case it wasn't safe for them to go out following the aftermath of Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. Let me read the passage from John 20. When it was evening on that day, the first day of the week, and the doors of the house where the disciples had met were locked for fear of the Jews, Jesus came among them and said, "Peace be with you." After he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. And then the disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. And Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, so I send you." And when he had said this, he breathed on them and said to them, "Receive the Holy Spirit. If you forgive the sins of any, they are forgiven. If you retain the sins of any, they are retained." I wonder, how familiar does this scene feel to us now? The doors were locked where the disciples were, and a week later the same room and the same locked doors. How many days of sheltering have we had now? We're all trying to stay healthy and safe, of course, protecting ourselves and our loved ones and one another. And now the door is slightly open and some are fearful. Some would say that our lockdown, our sheltering during this period, has been a huge communal act of love, perhaps more than has ever been seen before. In our account, Jesus shows up and he passes on the peace and he breathes the Holy Spirit into the disciples. So, here in 2020, towards the end of the first week of relaxed restrictions, of schools opening, of shops opening, of sports starting up again, are we able to believe and feel the Spirit in whose presence we're living? If we can, are we able to allow ourselves to be transformed by the Spirit? Can we trust God to deal with our situations, our hesitations, our fears, our anxieties, and to guide us in staying alert? I hope so. Like Thomas, who a little later in the passage realised who he was in the presence of, can we recognise Jesus' presence with us in the midst of life, whatever that may hold? Hopefully we all can. And if so, let's encourage one another and ourselves as, with God's guidance, his peace and his Spirit, we allow him to help us move onward to whatever brave new future world we may find ourselves in. One thing I think I know, it will be full of love and hope.